Procedural Generation, also known as PCG, is a name given to the style of development where algorithms are used to create content in video games without the aid of humans. This video will be split into points so that you can use them as a guide to begin your journey. These points are not necessities or steps to be followed, just my recommendations and what I did to get to where I am. Getting straight into it, point 1 is learning how to generate textures using noise functions. This sounds simple, but it's one of the best starting points as it lays a good foundation for your future projects. You also want to learn how to warp and play around with the noise using different mathematical functions. Some examples are ridge noise, using 1 minus the absolute of the noise value, Vono noise, created by finding the distance from any given pixel to the closest point in a predefined set, and fractal/octave noise, which is created by layering noise maps of increasing frequency and decreasing amplitude, resulting in a more detailed noise map. Some tutorials which can help with learning this include Holistic 3Ds, the theory of noise, an overview of Perlin noise, which is quite good at explaining how procedural noise works, Catalog Coding's Noise, a C# tutorial, which is a written paper that goes into depth about how noise is actually created. I also recommend joining the Procedural Generation subreddit. It has tons of helpful people and amazing ideas to use for inspiration. Moving on, point 2 is learning how to generate meshes via script. For this, I recommend watching Bracky's tutorials on mesh generation as well as the basics tutorial series by Uppbeat Games. The Bracky tutorial is simple, but the best to start off with due to its simplicity and how well Bracky's knows how to make tutorials in the first place. The Mesh Basics series is also fantastic, but the topics are slightly out of place. Nevertheless, both channels are great starting points for learning mesh generation. Now, can I make a video about learning procedural generation without mentioning the king himself? Sebastian Legge's Procedural Terrain series is the undisputed haven for learning lots of things including project management, class systems, mesh theory, problem solving, and so much more. I highly recommend watching through the tutorials up to episode 13. It's highly recommended to watch past that, but that is the bare minimum you should be able to understand to a sufficient level. The next point, point 3, is up to you. By now you've picked up enough about programming, mesh generation, noise, and a lot of other topics. I recommend now to go on to learn about different topics such as cellular automata, wonderfully outlined in this video by the Coding Train, marching squares, explained in another article by Catalog Coding, as well as the tutorial series by Sebastian Legge, and marching cubes, explained in another video by Sebastian. You can now go on to research procedural trees, voxel terrain similar to Minecraft, and you can create some other games using the knowledge you've gathered from your time learning procedural generation. And after that you can move on to the actual hellhole that is shaders. Point 4 is learning how to use shader graph, compute shaders, and shaders in general. It sounds terrifying, and the cold hard truth is yes. Most shader languages' syntax is confusing as hell, because that's just how it is. I'm currently approaching halfway through this point, and the tutorials which have helped me understanding shaders include Sebastian Legge's Compute Shader Coding Adventure and Game Dev Guides Getting Started with Compute Shaders. A couple more very good tutorials I would recommend watching are Shader Graph Fundamentals in Unity by Pablo Makes and Quill18 Creates the Unity Tutorial, a practical intro to shaders. They're both amazing tutorials, and I would definitely recommend you watch them all the way through, even though they're slightly longer. I do want to say that every point in this video was a chapter of my journey. It may or may not work for you. Learning anything in the world of game dev shouldn't be done in steps, rather it should be all over the place and reflect how you are feeling that day. If you really don't want to learn something, but my video told you to do it, then don't. Research topics that you are actually interested in, and that way you'll be happy and you'll progress in a more streamlined manner. After a while, procedural generation becomes a little bit bland. You'll need to experiment with topics that are not directly related to procedural generation, but rather utilize the knowledge that you gathered along this journey. If there are any points that you disagree with, let me know in the comments. And if you'd like to support my channel, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on post notifications to stay updated. Have a successful 2022 and happy programming.